School begins again today, but Sophie isn't even looking forward to seeing her friends and her favorite teacher. All she can think about is poor Felix. He has never traveled alone before. Isn't he awfully scared? When the first day of school is over at last, Sophie slowly makes her way home. She doesn't want to think about how there will be no more Felix waiting for her in her room. Her feet grow heavier and heavier, and it takes her a million minutes to reach the garden gate in front of her house. But why is Mom so excited? She is waving something in the air, and she calls, "Sophie, look! There is some mail for you." Sure enough, there is her name on the envelope, Amazed. Who could write in such a squiggly scrawl? Sophie turns the envelope over. News for Sophie, 33 Elm Road, Mansfield, Ohio. From Felix. Presently at Sandwich Street, 24 London, Great Britain. Sophie can hardly believe it. A real letter from her Felix. Her heart leaps, and she clutches the letter tightly. Then she hugs Mom, takes a deep breath, and shouts, "Lena, Nicholas, Julius, come look." When Dad comes home from work, he gets to read the letter too. He says, sounding surprised. So the traveler has landed in London. That's the capital of England. How many people live in a capital? Sophie asks. She wants to know all about where Felix is now. Let's look at the letter. What does it say? Oh, wow. Let me see. Let's put it up here and see what it says. Let me see here. It says, "Dear Sophie, unfortunately I got lost in the airport, but please don't worry about me. I am all right. I went abroad the wrong airline. It did not fly home, but to London. Here there is a square castle on a river, but the river is completely, absolutely filthy. There's also a big palace with lots of men in funny hats standing in front of it. You wouldn't wear a hat like that, even in winter. And one more funny thing, everybody here talks differently. I'll write again soon. I miss you. Yours truly, Felix." How can a bunny rabbit send a letter? That is amazing. Let's see what else the story says. With Dad, she looks in the envelope under London, encyclopedia under London. It says here, capital of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, lying on both sides of the Thames River, population almost 7 million. Residents of the royal family, contains about 1,600 churches and chapels, as well as fortresses including the Tower of London and the House of Parliament, one of the largest cities in Europe. Dad points to a picture and says that the English Queen lives here in the palace. Later in bed, Sophie wonders whether Felix has seen the Queen in the palace. Does she take her crown off at supper time? Thinking it over, Sophie falls happily asleep. A few days later, a letter arrives from Paris. Sophie sticks the envelope in her pants pocket, climbs up the old apple tree in the garden, and begins to read. A letter from Paris from Felix. Let's see what it says. Oh, and there's a picture. There's a picture of Felix. And what did Felix write here? Let's take a look at it. Okay. Chérie Sophie. That is French, and I love France. I now have a suitcase. It is très chic, as they say here. I'm seeing a bit more of the world. Paris is really not bad. I'm staying at the Hotel Ritz. It is very elegant. But somehow it seems like the people in the hotel and on the street don't notice me at all. Funny, isn't it? Doesn't matter to me, though. The picture is of me at the Eiffel Tower. It is the highest tower that I have ever seen. Luckily, there is an elevator that goes to the top for a great view. All the buildings look like small as matchboxes, only they have roofs and chimneys, Imagine this. The people carry their bread under their arms, and the bread is as long as a broomstick. Yesterday I saw a man playing bully in the park. Really big men like your dad. Can you believe that? How are things at home? Greetings and kisses from Felix. How can a bunny rabbit write a letter and send a picture of himself? Sophie wonders. How can everything be so different in Paris? Then she remembers that Grandma is coming to visit this afternoon. She will know all about it for sure, since she has been to France many times. Ooh la la! The rabbit is in Paris, Grandma exclaims. Then she tells Sophie about the game Felix has described. It's called Boulet, and it is very popular in France. Sophie is interested to hear that Paris has a wonderful cathedral, wide shopping streets, beautiful gardens, and some very old churches. Then Grandma fishes out a travel guide. Sophie flips through it, and Grandma dreamily explains, "Oh, they have simply the most delicious food there." As proof, she serves a baguette, which is the bread Felix saw, cheese and French salad, and it tastes almost like a trip to France. Slowly it gets dark, and it's time to go to bed. Bonne nuit, Grandma whispers in French when she comes to say good night to the children. Do you know how much longer Felix's trip will take? Sophie asks. Now that's hard to say, Grandma answers, and thoughtfully she adds, travelers always want to see just a little more. Sophie thinks this over. Does that mean that Felix will never come back? Suddenly there is a big lump in her throat. Don't worry. Felix will be back home for Christmas. I am absolutely certain, Grandma says quietly and gives Sophie a big goodnight kiss. Instead of counting sheep tonight, Sophie counts the days until Christmas. Just a few days later, Sophie receives another envelope with Felix's squiggly writing. From Felix, Val del Larove, 53, Italy, Rome. Okay, let's see what Felix has to say this time. Hi, Sophie. Let me tell you, it's pretty here in Rome. There is an ice cream man on every corner you would definitely like. In the middle of the day, it is so hot here that all the stores close and don't open again until afternoon. You can't imagine how many cats there are roaming around here. Black and white, tiger stripe, and lots of other colors. Last night, one of these wild cat beasts was hunting me. Can you believe it? I don't look anything like a gray mouse. Do I? Luckily, I got away, but it was close. Today, I was watching a tour group. Did you know that the ancient Romans lived here? That's why the city is called Rome. Just imagine, 2,000 years ago, they already had sports fields and swimming pools and temples for the gods. There are old buildings with columns and marble slabs all over the place. There is something written on them in a secret code. When I am back home, we can invent a writing too. What do you think? But first, I'm going to travel some more, to Egypt. Chai bella, like everyone here says. Yours truly, Felix. I don't understand how a bunny rabbit can write letters. But let's read on and see what the story says. Sophie can stop worrying now. Grandma really was right. Felix writes that he will be coming home. As long as she knows he's coming, it doesn't matter when. But what's that secret code? Maybe Julius will know more about it, Sophie thinks. She finds her big brother bent over a book, studying, and tells him about the letter from Rome. I know that secret code, Julius groans. We had a vocabulary test on it this morning in school. He hands Sophie his Latin book. Most of the pages look very strange, but Sophie finds some pictures of the temples in Rome that she loves. In the morning, Sophie looks all the way up and down the street, but there is no sign of little rabbit with the suitcase. "Come home, Felix," she whispers, and hopes that her wish will come true. Slowly the leaves on the trees turn color, and autumn comes. Sophie and her brother and sister build 4 paper kites with Dad. On the weekend, they fly them in a big field. Sophie waits every day for the mailman. She has already given up all hope of news from Felix when the mailman finally hands her a colorful envelope. Immediately, Sophie knows that it can only be from Felix. Oops. This letter Sophie reads twice. She just can't imagine the pyramids. How high are they really? While she is wondering, Mom comes into the children's room. "Well, since our Felix is in Egypt now, I have a surprise for you," she says. Mom won't tell Sophie anything more, and it's still a secret when they get into the car and drive away. When Mom finds a parking space, Sophie sees a big sign. It says, "Egypt, an ancient kingdom." In the museum, Sophie is amazed. There are so many display cases, big pictures, and even an animated film. That afternoon, she finds out how the pyramids and the Sphinx were built. When Mom and Sophie get home later that afternoon, Julius calls out, "Well, have you brought a mummy back with you?" Right away, Lena wants to know, what is a mummy? Nicholas wiggles his fingers and whispers darkly, "That is an old embalmed pharaoh that wants to come and get you." "Eee!" Lena squeals. "What nonsense," Sophie says. "Don't believe a word he says. Pharaohs used to be kings of old Egypt." "Exactly," said Julius. "They have been dead now for at least 4,000 years. That sounds better to Lena. Feeling better, she helps Sophie build the biggest pyramid made of blocks that has ever been in the living room. Sophie runs home fast one particularly rainy November day. When she gets in, she can't take her new rubber boots off fast enough, because there on the hallway table lies a crumpled envelope. It's another letter from Kenya. Let's see what it says. Dear Sophie, sorry that I made you wait so long, but my trip from the Nile to the coast of Africa was very difficult. First, I traveled by train and then in an ancient bus. The bus rattled as though it might collapse at any moment, but the long trip was worth it. Even in November, it is still sunny here, and there are endless stretches of beach and deep blue water. We could build the best sandcastles together here, but it's no fun for me all by myself. Do you know that I went on a real safari? I saw genuine elephants, also striped horses that are called zebras. Very far away, I spotted a lion. I was so glad that I didn't come any closer, because it looked just like that Roman cat beast. The monkeys are a lot more fun. You should see how they swing from tree to tree. I got dizzy just watching them. Stay on your guard, Sophie. Best wishes from you, your Felix. More letters from a rabbit. I find it hard to believe, ladies and gentlemen. Sophie looks up from the letter. Fat raindrops splash against the window. Everything outside looks so gray. She can hardly believe that the sun could be shining anywhere in the world. The next morning, it is still dark when Sophie takes a bus to the zoo with her whole class. Most of all, she wants to see the elephants. Everything there is very quiet. Only an old zookeeper is there. He tells her that every year there are fewer and fewer elephants in Africa. But why? Sophie asks. Isn't there enough room there? There's plenty of room, the zookeeper tells her sadly. But unfortunately, there are also too many people who ignore the hunting restrictions and only think about getting the valuable elephant tusks. Sophie is outraged and decides, when I am grown up, I am going to protect the elephants in Africa. That is her secret plan. She will only tell it to Felix when he is back home.